You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network, the home of the Options Podcast. For more quality options programs, visit theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app available in the iTunes and Google Play stores. Select programs are also available via live stream at mixlr.com/options-insider. That's mixlr.com/options-insider. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, stocktwits.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions at theoptionsinsider.com. And now, it's time for the show that breaks down the options market from unusual activity alerts to market analysis, strategy overviews, listener questions, and much more. If it involves puts and calls, then our all-star panel will break it down. It's time to hit the Option Block with your host, Mark Longo from the Options Insider Media Group and co-hosts Uncle Mike TOSAW from St. Charles Wealth Management, Mark the Greasy Meatball Sebastian from OptionPit.com, Andrew the Rock Lobster Joe Benazzi from OptionPit.com, and Henry the Flowmaster Schwartz from SEBO. The Option Block is brought to you by SEBO. When it comes to trading volatility, trust SEBO, the creator of the VIX Index, for in-depth and relevant information. SEBO's tools and services gives you up-to-date trade insights, analysis, and positions of VIX options and futures. No matter what kind of trader you are, there's plenty of useful information to take the guesswork out of creating your portfolio strategy and to help you make more educated moves in the market. Visit www.cboe.com/VIX today to learn more. The views expressed herein are those of the speakers and do not necessarily reflect the views of CBOE Global Markets Incorporated or any of its subsidiaries, collectively CBOE. The information provided is for general education and information purposes only. There are important risks associated with transacting in any of the CBOE products or any of the digital assets discussed here. Before engaging in any transactions in those products or digital assets, it is important for market participants to carefully review the disclosures and disclaimers contained at www.cboe.com/US_disclaimers. These products and digital assets are complex and are suitable only for sophisticated market participants. These products involve the risk of loss, which can be substantial and, depending on the type of product, can exceed the amount of money deposited in establishing the position. Market participants should put at risk only funds they can afford to lose without affecting their lifestyle. And now, get ready to hit the Option Block.
All right, everybody. That music means we are back once again on the old Options Insider Radio Network. Time to commence our broadcast week with your bi-weekly options extravaganza. Yes, your week cannot start until you've listened to the old OB. My name, of course, Mark Longo from theoptionsinsider.com, as well as from the network. Hope you folks had a great weekend out there. Fun, enjoyable, got away from your screens a little bit, saw friends and family, maybe got a little bit outside time, all that good stuff. And now we're back and ready to roll here. Of course, if you want to roll with even more content throughout the week, you want to get access to the live, you want to join our buddy Mr. Meats with a Z, who won a Pro Trading Crate last week, want to get options oddities, pro Q&As. Man, there is so much freaking content and good goodies, as they say, waiting for you. The second you hit that button, you got to head over to theoptionsinsider.com/pro. It is the only place you can go to get all that goodness and more coming all the time. Lots of surprises always lurking over there. Theoptionsinsider.com/pro. Speaking of surprises, maybe we have some in store for our cohorts today, because I am joined once again on the Monday episode by the greasiest of meatballs, Mr. Mark Sebastian from OptionPit.com, as well as by the uncleest of Mikes, Mr. Uncle Mike TOSAW from St. Charles Wealth Management. I introduce them now because, listeners, it is time to commence our broadcast week in high style. It is time for our 80s wrestling trivia game. Here we go. All right, everyone. Welcome to the 80s Wrestling Trivia Game. If you're wondering how do we stand here on this 14th of August, listeners, and right now Uncle Mike kind of running away with it. 14 and a half points for the Uncleist of Mikes. A paltry, a mere 8 points for the Greasiest of Meatballs. And, a surprisingly respectable 3 points for the Rock Lobster. I may have been a little charitable with my point allocation to him, but just the fact that he's on the board is impressive. I thought you'd have maybe half a point, let alone 3. So there you go. The Rock Lobster looking respectable. The Meatball, he needs to turn it up to 11 if he plans to catch the Uncleist of Mikes before the end of the year and turn this into a second consecutive victory for the Greasiest of Meatballs. All right, we'll see if we can do it today, listeners. Today's trivia question. I mentioned I was just at SummerSlam. It seemed like ages ago now, just a couple weeks ago in Detroit. It was interesting. One of the big matches they had was a defense of the IC, the Intercontinental title, my favorite belt. Old school 80s belt. Guys like Warrior, all the big guys had the IC belt on the way up. And to me, it's kind of still the emblematic of the best belt. Forget the top dog, forget the WWE belt and all that fun. The nonsense they have now, Universal title. Who cares about all that? IC belt is where it's at and where it was back in the day as well. I bring that up because the person who holds it now, this big German guy, Gunther. And his reign is about to become historic because he is about to become the longest reigning Intercontinental champion. I think it is in the next couple of weeks that he will pass the record held previously by this 80s, I'd say mid-Carter. Looks like we got buzzes already. I knew you guys, before I even got there, I knew you guys would be buzzing in on this. Let me set the scene a little bit here. He was definitely a bit of a mid-Carter, even though people wrote him off because of his gimmick. He actually was a better wrestler than maybe he got credit for back in the day. But he had a kind of a very silly, over-the-top gimmick. It was pretty obvious what they were going for. I won't say it because that's already obvious, and they're already buzzing it anyway. But this person, listeners, was the longest reigning Intercontinental champion. I forgot exactly how long it was until someone came along and took him from him in 30-odd seconds. That person, of course, was the Ultimate Warrior, who took the IC belt and went on to great things. Kind of leaving this person a little bit by the wayside. But now it is time to revisit him because he is once again back in the conversation with the IC belts coming up on historic title territory. Uncle Mike, I saw you buzz in first. I can't give any more hints. It's already pretty obvious who this person is. Who am I talking about, sir? Who is right now still the longest reigning IC champ of all time?
I'm going to go with the Honky Tonk Man.
The Honky Tonk Man, yes. The Honky Tonk Man, yes. He still is, listeners, surprisingly. Apparently there were some plans to put the belt on Ricky Steamboat. Then he ended up leaving in a huff to go, they say, spend time with his family or whatever. So Vince got mad. So he kept it on Honky Tonk for a very long time, making him the longest reigning. Honky Tonk, of course, as the name implies, a bit of an Elvis knockoff. He had the Elvis outfit. He had the Elvis look. He did the Elvis voice. So it was a very kind of cheap Elvis impersonator gimmick, which is why he kind of got, maybe some people don't hold him in such high regard, but a pretty decent guy out there. And Mr. Greasiest of Meatballs, to give you a chance to at least remain competitive. We got 1 point in the books now for TOSAW. I will give you a chance to get a half point today. Later on, after he lost the IC belt, they ended up putting Honky Tonk Man in a tag team. That tag team featured another wrestler.
Oh, that's easy.
Oh, yeah. Greg Valentine.
Yes.
Rhythm and Blues.
I was just going to say, what was the name of that tag team? All right, there you go. So a half point. Half point for the Meatball. So we got 1 point. Let's put these down here. So the 1 point for Uncle Mike. If I could type. There we go. A half point for the Meatball. So that puts Uncle Mike up to 15 and a half points and the Meatball at 8 and a half. So he's still got some work to do to catch up as we keep on going right on into the trading block.
It's time to break down the latest topics, trades, and trends in the world of options. It's time for the trading block.
All right, listeners, how'd you do? Did you know the Honky Tonk Man? He's kind of a mid-Carter, but a fun one. And again, becoming relevant again in the next couple of weeks. Let's see if Gunther can beat his reign. I think he probably will, but you never know. Crazier things could happen. Is it a crazy day in the market? I guess it kind of depends what you mean by crazy right now. In the standards of the post-pandemic era, not really. It's another day where we're mostly drifting to the upside. S&P up nearly 0.5%. It has gotten higher intra-session, has retreated off those highs a little bit, but still up about 0.5% on the day. The Dow kind of unched, so the Dow threatening to maybe make it a mixed day, and then the NASDAQ up about 0.75%. So again, kind of a weird day. Depends on where you look, what kind of day you're having. Some indexes are kind of not really playing ball. Others are feeling their oats out there today. That means our VIX friend, all this green, mostly on the screen at least. We'll see how long the Dow hangs out there. All that green on the screen, listeners, means our VIX friends, our VALE friends, coming in a wee bit. VIX at about a 15 when we kicked off the show. Down exactly a point from where we were on the Thursday show. VVIX, the VAL of VAL, remember, it was threatening triple digits, back down now to about a 96, down 4 points from the Thursday show. Still frothy, still effervescent, but not quite as juicy as it was on Thursday. VXX 2340 down about a point from the Thursday show. UVXY 17 even when we kicked off the show, down almost a full point, about 0.9 of a point there. SVIX 2870 getting some more juice, back up 1.1 points. And then UVIX back below the 4 handle, just starting to get relevant again, and right below the 4 handle again. 380 down 0.3 of a point. And VOLQ, NASDAQ vol has just come crashing in the last half an hour, 20 odd minutes, because this was over a 19, about 19 and a quarter. And now that was right before showtime. And right when we kicked off the show, it was at about an 1840. So it swung from being up about 1/4 of a point to down nearly over half a point, about 0.6 of a point. So NASDAQ vol just cratering right now. We'll see if that continues out there. As we go around the horn, we'll start with our reigning winner, at least for this year. Not our reigning champion. That would be the meatball. But our current winner in the wrestling game, the Uncleist of Mikes. Mr. Uncle Mike, any enduring memories of a beloved mid-carder known as the Honky Tonk Man? And then B, what's catching your eye in a mostly Uncle Mike type of day?
So I actually have kind of a deep cut memory of the Honky Tonk Man that not a lot of people do. Maybe they do, I don't know. But one of my favorite ones was when Jimmy Hart was his manager, and he was feuding with Jake the Snake Roberts, and Jimmy Hart had a campaign going to ban the DDT. He would wear T-shirts saying "Ban the DDT, ban the DDT, ban the DDT," and then so Gorilla Monsoon would say, "Well, that's just because the Honky Tonk Man's scared of it." No, it's not because the Honky Tonk Man's scared of it at all. It just it's a dangerous move. It needs to be banned, and that was the Honky Tonk Man. And Jimmy Hart's campaign was to ban the DDT. They want it banned. But I will say this. That's a move that I look at, and I don't know if I would want to go into a DDT, quite frankly.
Just ask Ricky the Dragon. He took one on the concrete, right? And I think he still bears the scars. If you get a DDT wrong, yeah, it could not be a good day for you, sir. But it's a good day in the markets. What's catching your eye on this Uncle Mike type of day, sir?
For sure. We got the S&P up roughly 20 on the day. Seeing that. Actually had some sellers in the bond market earlier in the day, but probably around an hour into the market, we had some buyers come in the bonds. So we have bonds back above water, if you will. One thing that is catching my eye right now is silver. And silver has come down a bunch over the course of the last month or so, over 10%. And silver's back down to closer to their support levels. Now, there's a lot of support at the levels that SLV is at right now. So if you are looking to get into and get out of silver and not do the boring collars like I've really screwed up the content on this show for doing, as I've been told many times, this might not be a bad time to take a look at if you like buying on the dip and that type of thing. In terms of the sectors of the market itself, XLK is leading the way. So we have technology. This is no doubt a technology-driven market today from where we are at. Apple's up $1.45 on the day. Still down from its highs. I mean, Apple was up to, I believe, around in the mid-190s pre-earnings, but I think it just, when you have the $1 trillion thing involved with your stock, there's could be some reason to sell off out of concern. So we have some movement out of Apple. Netflix is up over $5 on the day. Microsoft appears to maybe be leveling off a little bit. Microsoft was close to the 350 level and then pulled back rather quickly over the course of the last couple of weeks into the 3 teens, but it's back above 320 again. So overall, from what I can tell, with the market in and of itself, it appears that we are it could be just a little bit of a profit-taking day for the shorts from people that were shorting this pullback, or it could be just Potentially the market's leveling off a little bit. That is for our listeners to decide.
Yes, they are the ultimate arbiters at the end of the day. That's not our question of the week, though. We will get to our question of the week in a little bit. Looks like the listeners, interesting voting in our question of the week in the early first couple of minutes here as we keep on rolling. Mr. Meatball, sir, any enduring memories of the one, the only Honky Tonk Man? And then B, what's catching your eye out there in not quite a honky tonk kind of market, but I guess a kind of relatively steady market?
Well, as I recall, at one point, the WWE did kind of like an award show type of thing in the mid-'80s. And, you know, one of the main performances was the Honky Tonk Man, and it was awful. And then later on, he had, you know, we all knew his Honky Tonk Man intro, but we forget that he also had a second song that he performed, and then he would use the guitar to break over people's backs. And when you watched him play the guitar, you could clearly tell he didn't know how to play because his hands didn't actually move with the chords. He would just hold the guitar and pretend to strum. The final thing I remember is playing WWF on the Nintendo Entertainment System, and if you were playing the Honky Tonk Man, they would play it's the Honky Tonk Man loop over and over and over again in matches to the point where you would go slowly insane listening to that. That game was fun to play, but the music was borderline intolerable. That's what I remember about the Honky Tonk Man.
How dare you say Honky's music is intolerable, sir? How dare you say he couldn't play that guitar? He was always smashing over people's heads. How dare you, sir?
I apologize, but it's true. He could not play the guitar.
I don't know if Honky listens. I don't know if Honky's like Brutus and Sarge if he listens. I guess we'll find out in the comments once he hears what you said about him, sir.
Yeah, but if you watch, if you watch the thing, Mark, have you seen this like awards spectacular they put on at some point?
I don't think I have.
It's absolutely over the top insane. It was probably the you know, it was before McMahon came out as like the owner and the bad guy.
Oh, so he was still like the announcer.
Wasn't that the Slammy Awards instead of the Grammys?
The Slammy Awards. But you got your first kind of glimpse of Vince McMahon's like uber narcissism, and it is something to behold. Give yourself a minute and watch it, and you'll understand.
On YouTube, is it worse than the Star Wars Holiday Special?
It is. It might be. It might.
Wow,
be.
That's saying a lot, sir.
Carrie Fisher could sing better than any of the WWE stars. I'll say that.
All right, we're giving our listeners some quality watching on the old tubes for after the show, sir. I like it. What else is catching your eye out there in this kind?
Yeah, I mean, it's the bond market. We were kind of down on the day, and then we got a nice rally out of the treasuries, which have gone from pretty deeply red early this morning and have rebounded to up on the day, to flat on the day, and have threatened to go green multiple times. So, and that bottoming is really what allowed the market to, catch this rebound. You saw the NASDAQ take off. That's been a big deal. The other piece besides the NDX that's moving around is steel, where, we saw this unsolicited bid out of Cleveland Cliffs to buy U.S. Steel. And interestingly, U.S. Steel is up huge, but Cleveland Cliffs is up monumentally as well. NVIDIA is up $27 right now. This whole rally is being pulled up by chips. So basically, chips are buying dips, if you will. And the final.
Okay, that's the show title for the day. I love that's almost as good as the knife on the precipice of the edge from last week or whatever we had. Chips by the tips. I love it.
Yeah. And then finally, you've got your meme stocks and EVs that are taking it on the chin. AMC is down 34%, but you're also seeing softness in LCID, Nikola, Fisker, any of these EV names. They're under some tough periods, but a little bit money flowing into Ford and GM in return.
Yeah, a lot to unpack there. I saw my second Rivian in the wild this weekend. Just weird stuff. Rivians,
they're ugly,
popping up all over Chicago. It's weird. Yeah, they're interesting. They're kind of a little boxy, I guess you could say, but they're going for a different market, obviously, than the Tesla crowd. Tesla doesn't really have a ton of SUVs, so Rivian trying to fill that niche, and apparently, at least some folks here in the Chicagoland area liking themselves a little bit of the old Rivian. Have you seen one in the wild, listeners? They are intriguing, becoming less of a unicorn than they were, let's say, even a few months ago out there. Let's see what's going on in this not quite unicorn type of market, but a decently active market, all things considered. Let's start in VIX land. And you know what? It's surprisingly active for a Monday coming into, middle of August, where the market isn't really blowing the doors off. We're not seeing a lot of red on the screen. We're not seeing a ton of whipsaw action either. Those two things usually tend to drive a lot of VIX volume. We've been mostly trending up on the morning. That usually doesn't translate into a robust VIX day, but the VIX is saying, hold my beer, kid. I'm putting up some numbers today. 539,000 contracts on the tape already today. The ADV 752, so spoiler alert, probably going to hit that today. Looks like the big dog today is about 70,000 of the AUG 15 puts. So somebody's got a huge axe to grind. Maybe taking some of these bad boys off. Let me just look here really quick. VIX, one big print, listeners. Yeah, they went up for 59 cents, 17,000 times. Looks like a roll out to September. But obviously more traded. I'll have to dig in 10,000 more times. Yeah, a bunch of these AUG 15 puts going up out there today. Total nearly 70,000 contracts. So that would explain some of this action. But everything just like a heavy day across the board in VIX, which is interesting. You don't need me to tell you SPY's at 4.62 million right now. You can kind of just guess that, and you're anywhere between 4.3, 4.6. You're probably right. That's where we are right now. The ADV 7.81 million. The S 1.45 million, so closing in on 1.5 million contracts. A respectable day for the S. The ADV 2.83 million. Small caps IWM also looking robust today. 575,000 contracts on the tape for IWM. The ADV 819. That ADV has come off quite a bit, a couple 100,000 contracts, but looks like they're going to hit it today. By the way, small caps in the red right now, off about 0.33% out there. So intriguing stuff. And not to be forgotten, we have the Qs, listeners. Over 2 million already, 2.12 million contracts. So, spoiler alert, the Qs are going to hit their roughly 3.5 million ADV right now. Bit of a banger day out there for the Qs, and a surprisingly banger day across the board here for most of our major indexes. Let's get out some of our top 10, see what's lighting it up. The meatball already hit on some of these bad boys out there right now. Is it an explosive day for single names? And the answer is no. It only cost you about 185,000 contracts to break into the top 10. I just re-racked that, so that's actually up to a little bit more respectable, 193, but still not even 200K to break into the top 10. That's where we are right now, listeners. It gets us to the aforementioned U.S. Steel, a.k.a. X. There was a ton of rumors swirling over the weekend that this one was suddenly in play. A lot of people were thinking Musk was making a bid for it just to get the ticker of X. Which I guess at this point, can we put anything past that guy? But yeah, that was some of the rumors. Of course, it materialized in this whole Cleveland Cliffs deal. It looks like they've already rejected it, but nonetheless, just the notion that they're in play. The stock up $7.50, or about 33% right now. So a little bit of a gift for U.S. Steel shareholders that otherwise weren't having the best year. I mean, they were 24.41 a year ago, and until this drama started happening over the weekend, they were at $22.50. They were actually down on the year. Now they're up 23.68% on the year. So not a bad little turnaround. Thanks, Elon, for whoever you want to attribute this madness to. All these rumors swirling, getting some paper. Not a ton of paper, though. Only 193,000 contracts. Again, that's not nothing for good old U.S. Steel. I mean, this is not exactly the most active of names. The ADV is 24,000 contracts. So 200K roughly. It's a pretty decent day And that gets us to number 10. Number 9, we're going out to China yet again, listeners. So from U.S. Steel to China. Very, very interesting juxtaposition there. Alibaba, I guess China's off again today, listeners. Alibaba off nearly $2. I just ticked exactly $2. Trading 93 3/4 right now. 205,000 contracts on the tape today. So apparently China looking no bueno today after having a nice little run in BABA for portions of last week. Number 8. A lot of the usual suspects in here, listeners, today. It's good old Softy, 220,000 contracts. Again, kind of a light day for all these names right now. It's up $1.67 right now, trading 322.68. So Softy looking interesting today, and light but decent paper nonetheless. On number 7, we're all the way at number 7, listeners, and we still haven't cracked 300K. This gets us to the artist formerly known as Meta. I'm not really going to, artist formerly known as Facebook, I should say. I'm not really going to embrace the Meta, probably. I'm not going to embrace X either. I can't say X. That's just ridiculous. Xing. I sent you an X. Like, what are we doing here with the lingo? So let's just keep it the way we've been doing it here on the show, listeners. The artist formerly known as Facebook. I'd rather go that long way around, that circuitous route, than say things like Meta and X. But that's where we are. Good old Meta Platforms in at number 7, 243,000 contracts. Facebook up about 304, almost 304.5. That's where they're trading right now, up about 280 right now. Number 6, first half of the chip zone, coming right about where we expect it. Number 6, that gets us to AMD, 333,000 contracts today. It's up 3 1/4, a little over 3%, trading a little bit shy of 111 right now, listeners. So a decent little day here for AMD. It's interesting. Just kind of not an explosive day, but a steady day for a lot of these names, and a decent amount of upside in store for a lot of these names. Let's go to our number 5 name now, keeping it in the A zone. It's the Amazonians, 347,000 again. 350 is our barometer for a very active day to break into the top 10 sometimes. So we're all the way at number 5, and we're a little bit shy of 350. So that shows you what kind of day we're having. Not exactly a rock'em sock'em robots day. In the single names, Amazon right around 350, trading 139 and about a half, up a little over $1, about $1.10 right now. So a nice little pop for them today. So they got as high as 140 and a half earlier, it seems like. Then they kind of gave up the ghost again. So they're a little bit of whipsaw action in some of these names here. They sold off to 137 3/4 this morning, and they rallied it to 140 and a half, and now back down to 139 and a half. So hence a little bit of paper. 347, not a ton for Amazon, but enough to get them to the number 5 spot today. Even more surprising is our number 4 participant today, listeners. It's the fruit company. It's been a while since we've seen Apple kicked out of the top 3. Apple today, a paltry 519,000 contracts. Apple today up about $1.50, trading right around 179 1/4. Looks like it's had about a $2.40 range roughly on the day. Got as high as nearly 180 and as low as 177, right around 177.30. So intriguing stuff out there. Good for 519,000. Again, that's a rounding error for Apple. So not a ton to write home about here. In Apple land, number 4, the other half of the chip zone, it's NVIDIA, coming in at number 3. Banger day for NVIDIA. My goodness, up $26.20, 6.4%. Getting back, pretty much everything is given up recently and then some. Looks like Morgan giving some love, heaping some love upon NVIDIA. That's all it takes. That's all it takes to make these AI-related names just pop hard. Again, just a banger day for them. 1.05 million contracts on the tape. It's been a little while since we've seen NVIDIA put up 1 million contracts, but we are seeing that out there today. Let's just look really quickly. Let's see what the big dog is out there in NVIDIA today. It's 55,000 of the AUG 400 puts expiring this week. So weekly opening paper on the 400 puts. Interesting. In fact, all of the top 20 are all opening trades. So a lot of people piling in to NVIDIA. I guess that's to be expected with 1,000,005 contracts on the tape today. Number 2. Yes, number 2. A lot of shakeups today. It's Tesla, kicked out of the top spot yet again. A couple of times now we've seen that recently. Interesting. Tesla, 238.65, off $4 exactly, about 1.65%. Good for 1.21 million contracts today. Tesla, let's see, the low 233 3/4, the high 240 2/3. So an intriguing range out there for Tesla. Again, hanging out near the upper end of that right now, 238.71. And the big dog out there today, it's the former king of the apes. Ape being an important word for AMC shareholders today because, of course, people thought maybe this whole conversion with the ape thing was in the rearview mirror. Apparently not. Judge ruled for it today. Stock taking a nosedive today. AMC trading $3.50 off $1.80 or about 34%. Of course, those ape shares going to dilute AMC holders. Also going to be a 10-for-1 reverse split on top of that. So a lot of things popping off here in AMC land, which is contributing to 1.61 million contracts on the tape right now for AMC. Been quite a while. Probably got to go back to the heady days of 2021 to see AMC that active. If you're wondering right now, it's 126,000 of the AUG 4 puts expiring this week that are leading the dance, followed by 122,000 of the 3.5 puts. So the 4 puts are not opening, the 3 puts are, so maybe a bit of a roll down. Either way, similar size paper to lead the dance in AMC. Speaking of the dance, we got earnings popping off still this week. Big names popping off, hot off the presses because we like you folks. Updated earnings move and numbers and reports and data from our friends over there at ORATS. Let's see, we've got Home Depot after the bell tomorrow, Target on Wednesday. So everyone who's kind of wondering about recession fears and consumer confidence and all these things, Target and Walmart are two big bellwethers of that, and they're popping off this week. Target on Wednesday. We've got TJX Companies on Wednesday, Cisco, Uncle Mike's favorite, and good old Stone Co. Thursday, we got Walmart, the other half of that retail duo there, and AMAT. And then Friday, we got John Deere for all your tractor vol listeners. And let's see, we got some intriguing earnings move results going off right now. Looks like including Roivant Sciences. Is that what this is? A ticker symbol ROIV. Listen, yeah, this is Roivant Sciences popping off before the bell today. They were pricing in 8.4%. Looks like they delivered a whopping 1.8%. So a whole bunch of underperformance, biotech underperforming, listeners. That's kind of interesting out there. Hard to even get a quote on this thing. 11.88, up about 30 cents right now. So yeah, they were pricing in some juice, and apparently this one underperforming out there. Of course, coming up later this week, we got some bigger names. Target on the 16th before the bell, trading 131 even when we ran this report. They were pricing in 912. In the past, they moved 978, so a little bit light on the juice front in Target. Cisco, let's see, 16th after the bell, 53 3/4. They're pricing in 231. In the past, they've moved 290. So a little bit light on the juice front there as well, 2 for 2. Kind of interesting. Stone Cold, everybody loves Stone Cold. 16th after the bell, 1360 is where they were trading. They're pricing in about $1.50. In the past, they moved $1.83. So 3 for 3 on the light juice front. We'll see if we can keep it going here, listeners. Walmart, 17th before the bell, 161.20 is where they were trading. They're pricing in $5.51. In the past, they moved $5.75. So slightly less juice, but not a ton. Not as aggressive as some of the others, but still net less juice than we were seeing in previous cycles. So that's intriguing in and of itself. Right now, the cycle coming in a little bit again. We're at 109% for the season. It was 121 on our last reports last week. So we knew that was going to come in, and pretty much it has continued. Our long-term average is 98%. As we keep on rolling, listeners, it's time to get weird. It is time to get wild. It is time for the Odd Block.
It's time to break down the most interesting, unusual, and downright questionable options activity that's been identified by theoptionsinsider.com. It's time for the Odd Block.
All right, everybody, welcome to the Odd Block. Let's get weird. Let's get wild. Let's start things off in DoorDash. You know the deal with this stock, darling of the pandemic. Since then, it's kind of come on a little bit of hard times, even though it seems like it has had a decent resurgence. A year ago, it was trading 77 3/4. Then they crushed it down to 41.36. That was back in October of last year. And then since then, it's actually been on a pretty decent run. It's rallied from that 41.36 in October all the way up to its apex just a couple of weeks ago, end of July, $92.61. So they more than doubled this thing. Interesting. And then kind of coming off of it again, just in the last month, it's been a rough one. It's sold off from that high down to where it is right now, $79.50. So apparently that was a little bit too rich for DoorDash's blood, but now intriguing stuff. I bring all that up to say our Eye of Sauron picked up on what looks to be a pretty sizable call roll. And if you just look at the option side of it, a pretty expensive one too, but usually there's more involved in these types of trades, listeners. What we noticed was the Nove 65 SEP 70 roll going up 40,000 times, just like paper dumping the SEP 70s for $10.40, and then buying the 65s. That's interesting. You don't usually see them go out and down like that. But that's what we're seeing out there right now. They paid $17.40 for those. The stock was right around here when they did it, $79.50. Worth noting, there are earnings early in November, so this trade will include the earnings cycle. If you're curious, we were curious. So when do they open these SEP calls? Because those were closing. We went back, and they haven't held on to them for that long. They opened them on July 25th, so it's a pretty near-dated, meaty trade. They came in and bought 35,500 of them on July 25th for $17.15. Obviously, they did a total of about $40,000 on the day. The stock of the time was $85.55, listeners. So you can do the back of the napkin math a couple of ways. Straight net premium, they dropped somewhere in the ballpark of $27 million on these calls. So that's an expensive one. But then again, these are meaty calls, probably not done on their own, probably done against stock, probably, given how meaty they were, probably on a 1 delta. So in which case, then they could have made somewhere in the ballpark of $25 million selling the stock at around $85.50 back then. So that makes that ouchie seem a little bit more bearable, but a lot to unpack here. Mr. Meatball, first off, what are your thoughts? How do you think they put up that initial leg? Do you think they did it 1-to-1 with stock, or perhaps on a ratio? The more of a ratio they did, the more this trade's going to hurt. And then B, are you surprised that they're keeping the party going and rolling to an even lower strike in November, sir?
Well, I do think it looks like it was done with some stock, and, who doesn't love throwing bad money after bad, right? That's typically that's not always a good sign. I like to track the movements of paper, not just initially their trades, but kind of as they do these rolls, and you can get a pretty good feel for what somebody is doing and whether they're good at it or not. And this would not be the type of paper I would be jumping on top of.
That sounds like the name of a new newsletter for you guys over there in the land of the pit. Bad money after bad, huh? I would subscribe to that. That'd be interesting reading. What do you think?
It makes sense to me.
Who wouldn't pay for that? Bad money after bad. Would you subscribe to that newsletter, listeners? I don't know. Intriguing stuff. No, what else is intriguing, listeners? It's our old friend. This kind of became a bit of a joke on Options Oddities, but it's back, listeners. It is Vodafone, ticker symbol VOD. Trading about 9.25 right now, off about 6 cents today on the year. It's been a little bit of a challenge. A year ago was about 14.75, and it hit its high for the year a day or two later, about $15.04. Since then, it pretty much has been mostly downhill. It did bottom out very briefly below $9, $8.93. I recall this back in June because we were watching it then as a result of oddities. And they rallied it a bit back up to about $10 again on July 26th. And then since then, it has sold off back to 9.25. And what we noticed back on Options Oddities, this was back all the way back on May 19th. Didn't seem like it was that long ago, but apparently it was. We've traded it a few times on Options Oddities in the past with middling results. Someone bought a bunch of, I think they were the April 17s a year or two ago on the show, and we tried to piggyback them and did some interesting things against them. Someone came back for size again back in May and bought about 10,000 of the OC 11s for 40 cents. Those seem like maybe a bit aggressive. The stock was $10.50 at the time. We joked about them a lot, but maybe we should have bought them on Options Oddity, but we never really wanted to. I ended up working a vestigial bid for about a dime, and when Vodafone got crushed all the way down, I got filled on those. I now am the proud owner of some of these bad boys for a dime. Better than 40 cents, certainly. But I bring that up to say that somebody is coming back for size today. Apparently, Vodafone is back on the menu, listeners. Someone first scooped up 13,500 of the 10 calls for 43 cents. Then we saw 10,000 more for 47 cents and 5,000 more for 47 cents, 3,600 for 48 cents, and so on and so forth. You get the picture, listeners. A total of 40,000 of these Jan 10s have gone up on the day. So this is not a new phenomenon. We've seen size call paper go up in Vodafone in the past. Sometimes it's been fairly prescient. Sometimes, like the Ox, maybe not so much. So interesting, similar size, what we've seen in the past, similar premium level too. So intriguing stuff. Mr. Meatball, did you notice this size call palooza in Vodafone? And what are your thoughts? Are you gobbling up the Jan 10s?
Yeah, we did. And Andrew made comments that he is going for me to remind him on Friday to make fun of you for buying Vodafone calls based on this flow. These guys, they buy this, and at some point every time it gets profitable, and they never do anything with it. I don't know exactly what they're doing, but these will be at some point be up money, and this trader is not going to do anything with it. So hopefully, Mark, you're more nimble than this trader.
Second, those calls are 12 cents. Bid them out, baby. There we go. Take my 2 cents and run. Let's keep rolling. The Vodafone's interesting. Have you folks been lured? I know we've been joking about it for months now, listeners, on Oddities. Have you been lured to the dark side of Vodafone at all? I'm curious. Let me know. You like these? You like these for around 47 cents, the Jan 10s? It's a better strike than the 11s, but intriguing stuff nonetheless. Let's pay off one more here. Let's go back to the June 5th show. Everyone's favorite Brazilian name here. This is VALE, ticker symbol, VALE. We call it VALE for fun here on the network. Taking a bit of a banger to the downside today, $12.50, off about 80 cents. Back on the June 15th show, though. So a couple of months ago now, the Flowmaster was on. And he talked about someone loving the upside in good old Vale. They were buying the July 16-17 call spread, paid 12.5 cents 50,000 times, and also bought a bunch of the July 15s. People were just buying a bunch and selling the July 13 puts. So there's a lot of upside bias paper in good old Vale, aka Vale. And on July expiration, it looks like a good chunk of it did not work out. Most of it was still open. There were still 88,000 of these calls open at expiration, especially on this July vertical. The stock went out at $14.19, listeners. So the 16-17 vertical for 12.5 cents, no bueno there. The long July 15s, 20,000 of those straight. I don't have the price they bought those on, but either way, those are still open. Not looking good. The selling the 10,000 of the July 13 puts is the only thing that seems like it worked out for this person. But either way, it seems like a whole bunch of long upside premium went to die in your favorite name, Mr. Meatball, good old Vale, sir.
Yeah, this company is the lone loser in the steel business based on the Cliffs and U.S. Steel potential deal. We saw traders setting up for this to drop last week. You've got some continued bets on it right now. This is one to sell puts in, never buy calls, and below 12 it looks interesting. Above 14, everyone's fading it. It is stuck in a rut.
Yeah, the put leg, the only one that worked out here, listeners. As we keep on rolling, let's see if Uncle Mike's trades are going to work out. It is time for the strategy block.
It's time to dispense options, wit, wisdom, and education. It's time for the Strategy Block.
All right, everybody, welcome to the Strategy Block, the portion of the show where Uncle Mike spends several hours regaling us with his thoughts on the options term structure of Cleveland Cliffs. Have at it, sir. The floor is yours.
Cleveland Cliffs. So you know what? I'm going to talk about Axl Rose instead. What do you think about that?
Ooh, I'm down for that.
All right, go for it.
All right. So right now, with a lot of stocks in this market at this stage, they've had a rally. Like if you look at Amazon, for example, at the beginning of the year, it was down as low as 81, but now it's at the 139 level. Google. Another example, Google, the high for Google back in early 2022 It was at $151 a share. Got as low as 86 in the 86s early this year. Now it's back to 130. There's a lot of stocks that are kind of in this spot right now, in that they made some highs, they made some lows, or they went down significantly, but now they've kind of come back. But now it looks like maybe it's the rally's kind of fading away a little bit, or is it something to where is this the dip that you need to get into? I don't know, and it's obviously up to the listener to decide on such things, on whether they want to get into these stocks on the dips. But what I want to emphasize is the importance of patience. Hence the reason we were talking about Axl Rose, one of his big songs, him with Guns N' Roses, Patience, back in the 80s. So with that, I want to emphasize that if let's say that you wanted to get into a stock at a certain level and it's starting to come down, but it looks like you might miss it. Well, just because it feels like you might miss it doesn't necessarily mean you will. And at least from my experience over the last few years, or over the last, almost 20 years now, whenever I have jumped the gun and I've wanted to buy a dip a little bit sooner than I should have, I've typically ended up regretting it because of the fact that there's a reason that I had, if XYZ stock is at 55 and I wanted to buy it at 48, how come I'm buying it at 51? And when I do that, it typically burns me because of the fact that I did my research and I had good reason to believe that I wanted to buy it at 48. So it's because of that I want to emphasize that the only time that you ever should buy the stock in this example at 51 would be if you have a very good reason to do so. What news, what chart pattern, what reason do you have now to buy it at a higher level, whereas you didn't want to wait until your original level? Waiting and being impatient is not a good reason to buy it. That is something that you should not do, because you're trying to base a buy on emotions. And as we all know, that typically doesn't end well when you do it. Whereas before, your original plan of buying the stock, if it were to dip all the way down to 48, let's say, well, that makes sense because you did research thinking, okay, at this chart pattern, it's going to be a good buy at 48, or this makes its fundamentals a certain level, whatever the case may be. Now, another way with which to do this is if you know going into this that you're not a patient person, then maybe what you could do is perhaps say, okay, the stock's at 55, I want to buy it at 48. And I don't know if I can handle waiting till 48 because there's a chance it could rally at, say, the 51 level. Well, maybe what you could do, and if you're buying 100 shares, let's say, put in a standing limit order to buy 50 shares at 51, and then maybe buy another 50 shares at a lower level to where maybe at 45. To where that way you can average into what you wanted. And if the stock does touch 55 and go higher and you don't want to regret it, you can at least somewhat be a part of it. Now, another thing with which you can do, let's say you're doing this with 200 shares, you can add a ratio spread. You can create some double leverage that way on the first initial buy. You'll limit your upside by doing that, but it's something with which to consider. And we've talked about stock repairs with ratio spreads or creating double leverage many other times on this show. So that could be something with which you could consider. So the moral to the story is that if you have logical reasons to why you want to buy at a certain level, then you need to stick to those logical reasons. Just because it's taking a little bit longer than you'd like doesn't mean you should do it. That means you're being impatient, and we all know that Axl Rose would not be happy with you if you did not show a little patience. And that is the strategy block for today.
But Uncle Mike, if I don't buy it at 51, I might miss out. And then, what will I do with myself? What will I do with my hands if I miss out, sir? I don't know. I just can't handle the pain, the fear of missing out. Instead, I'm going to keep on rolling right on into the mail block.
It's time to take your seat on the All-Star panel as we read your emails, tweets, Facebook messages, website comments, and much more. It's time for the Mail Block.
All right, listeners, really quickly, let's get into our question of the week. From this week, we'll pay off last week's question of the week on the Thursday episode of the show, maybe on some other episodes, maybe on boot camp later this week because we're coming up against it. Right now, we are asking you folks, we kicked off the year with our annual kind of sentiment poll. We asked you folks, if you had to buy a 10% out of the money call in one of these four asset classes, which one would you buy? The SPX, Bitcoin, WTI, or VAL. And about 43% of you chose SPX, so that was probably the right. I'll have to crunch the numbers on all of them, but it was definitely a good call for this year. But we're doing it again. We thought it was a good time to revisit our sentiment poll. See if you folks are still feeling the same way that you did back in January. Again, quite simply, buy a 10% out of the money call expiring end of the year on one of those four same asset classes, volatility, crude oil, Bitcoin, or the S&P 500. Which way would you go? Mr. Meatball, we'll start with you. What is your call? And then which way do you think our audience is going, sir? I'm
thinking I would go... So buy a put, right?
Buy a call. Buy a call on one of the following.
Oh, call. I'm going to... Sorry. Bitcoin. That's what I think our audience is going for. And I would buy a call on crude.
Interesting. Mr. Uncle Mike, same question for you. What are you down for? What do you think our audience is down for?
I think the audience is down for the VIX. And, I hate, if it wasn't the 10%, I wouldn't be saying this, but because it's 10%, do I have to hold this call till expiration?
That is implied in the thing. Yes, you're going to hold it till the end of the year.
Because I was going to say if I get out of it right away, then I'd pick the VIX because the VIX going up $1.50 at some stage, or something along those lines, just on a day. I think the odds are pretty strong at some stage, but I got to go with the SPX if I had to choose. I can't go against my systems.
Right now, our audience agrees with you. 55.6% of you in the first hour of voting choosing the S&P 500, 22.2% choosing the VIX, and then 11.1% each for Bitcoin and WTI. Again, that's our question of the week. Just went live. Those numbers will be fun to watch them evolve throughout the week. It's been fun to watch folks going back and forth in our chat. The Monday show with the WWE stuff is always interesting. Option God saying he loved WWF as a kid. Started watching again about a year ago after hearing Mark talk about it on the show. Oh, I'm sorry. I apologize for dragging you back down the WWE rabbit hole. Nothing good happens there. Option God. We've got Frank said he never stopped. Okay, he's into it. A lot of our hardcores are into this fun stuff. Age Delaquare saying if I had YouTube in high school, I would have flunked out and spent all day watching wrestling. Yeah, I guess we should all be thankful we only had, the Saturday night's main event and a few other things to really sink our teeth into, maybe a little bit of Hogan's Rocking Wrestling on the weekends there. We didn't have the endless stream of content that people have access to today. Also, a lot of fun debate about whether the meme stocks are indeed back. That was indeed the subject of our question of the week from last week. But we got to keep on rolling right now, listeners, into our final segment. It is time to go around the block.
It's time to tell you what we'll be watching on our trading screens until the next episode. It's time for Around the Block.
All right, let's do it. Let's go around the block. Let's start with the greasiest of meatballs, sir. What are you keeping an eye on until the Thursday episode?
Well, we got FOMC minutes this week. We've got, whether this Monday move gets a little fall through. Whether the chip and dip is real or if it's just a one-day phenomena is what I'm watching this week.
You're really working this chip and dip thing, huh? You want that to be the title? Interesting. Maybe
I think it kind of has to be.
I think we're going to go something rhythm and bluesy, but hey, maybe we'll see if we can work a chip and dip into the conversation. Mr. Uncle Mike, sir, are you down for a little bit of chip and dip? And then what are you keeping an eye on until the Thursday show?
I mean, how can you not be down for chip and dip? That's just a great thing. Anyway, what I'm looking at or watching throughout the week is I want to see if we finally bottomed in bonds. We're really close to the bottom, and I want to see how we can react to that and see if we can get some type of support off that. And then also watching silver and bonds, rhythm and blues, silver and bonds. Maybe that's something. But those are the things that are kind of dipping right now, besides the dips and the chips and the chips and the dips or whatever. So that's what I'm watching.
Rhythm and blues, silver and bonds. That would be an interesting title as well. Who would click on such a thing, I wonder? Intriguing stuff. Unfortunately, listeners, that music means we're out of intriguing stuff, at least for this program. But if you're listening live, so hang out. I'll be back in a little bit with Ye Old Crypto Rundown. I hope you enjoyed our kind of out-of-sequence crypto hot seat we did with the folks from the Coinbase Derivatives team on the network last week. It went into the Crypto Rundown feed. So you guys got a little bit of a bonus crypto hot seat last week. That was pretty fun. So intriguing stuff. Wanted to chat with them for a while, see what's cooking. Coinbase, obviously a big dog in the crypto space and starting to dip their toes into the whole derivative space as well. So intriguing stuff there. But if you want more intriguing stuff, let's go around the horn and check in with each of our cohorts. First, to the uncleist of Mike, sir. If folks want more intriguing stuff for you, perhaps they want chips and or dips, or perhaps rhythm and or blues, where should they go, sir?
stcharleswealth.com. Often imitated, never duplicated. We got chips and dips. We got silver and bonds. We got rhythm and blues. You name it, we got it. If you're looking for a financial advisor who uses the option product, if appropriate for the client, of course, reach out to me, stcharleswealth.com, or follow me on Twitter at Mike TOSAW, TOSAW.
And for the greasiest of meatballs, sir, if folks want to get a little rhythm and blues, easy for me to say, or they want to get a little bit of chips and dips action, where should they go? What should they do?
Head to optionpit.com and check out my Trading Edge blog. It's going to have actionable ideas just about every day. Give it a read. You'll be happy.
And when can they expect the launch of that Bad Money After Bad newsletter?
That's a good idea. I don't hate that idea. Maybe that'll be this Saturday.
Bad Money After Bad, coming soon to the land of the pits. If you need ideas to how to throw your money away, that's the place to go. In the meantime, listeners, we'll be back in a little bit with the old crypto rundown. Back again throughout the rest of the week with all of our usual array of content, pro Q&As. We've got some boot camp action coming up on Wednesday. And then, of course, back again on Thursday, another episode of The Option Block. Stay safe out there, everybody.
You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network, the home of the Options Podcast. For more quality options programs, visit theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app available in the iTunes and Google Play stores. Select programs are also available via live stream at mixlr.com/options-insider. That's mixlr.com/options-insider. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, stocktwits.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions at theoptionsinsider.com.